for now 10 years. Every day for 10 years, I have been bullied and attacked. And I was the most trolled person in the entire world, man or woman. And I'm still here. And so when I think of all of you and what you're experiencing, I think so much of that is having to realize that, that industry, that billion-dollar industry that is completely anchored and predicated on cruelty to get clicks, that's not going to change.
Tony in Hampshire, hi.
Hello.
What do you think of what Meghan said?
Well, I think it's based on fact, and I think that before any criticism of her and to tell her, get off social media, ignore it. I mean, let's remember that she always had a social media presence way before she was part of the royal family, which was used for actually, I think, a lot of positivity, women's rights, and all that kind of stuff. So she was already established on social media. And I think that what's happened to her. I mean, I think of what happened to Caroline Flack and how she had about 3 weeks of abuse, which caused her to commit suicide. Yeah. And Meghan's kind of had to hold her nerve for years now, unfairly. And it's so much of it has emanated from what the palace and the institution had set up.
All right. I mean, I suppose, yes, although she took on the palace establishment, and I know Paula's going to disagree with me now, she basically accused them of racism through an interview which her husband corroborated without really any evidence at all.
I am going to correct you. You'll be surprised to hear that racists don't walk around with racist tattooed on their forehead. That's not to say that she was wrong. She might be.
She said they were talking about the skin colour of their baby and thinking okay, is that not allowed?
So it's all about context. And this is the problem with proving racism. When you're in a situation where somebody says, Gitto and Paula are finally having a beloved child. How wonderful. Yeah, and we've discussed whether it's going to have blue eyes or brown hair. Isn't that fantastic? Or you're in a room where you walk in and there's stony faces and somebody in the background says, yeah, I wonder what it's going to look like. I hope it's light-skinned. Context, Jeremy, context. Can I just say, John's absolutely right. I'm really disappointed in the institution that is the royal family in allowing this industry to thrive. They could have put a stop to this and they've chosen not to.
Yeah, you know what? It all started, I think, when they had the wedding, Harry and Meghan, and it was such a great success. And someone, on behalf of William and Kate, started to brief against. You could see it, and it just got out of control.
If there's one thing that has never really gone away since Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, entered the royal family, it's the debate over how she was treated. Years have passed. Countless headlines have been written. Documentaries have aired. Interviews have been dissected. And yet the conversation refuses to disappear. This time it was the Jeremy Vine show that reignited the discussion. A passionate caller challenged the narrative surrounding Meghan and questioned whether the treatment she received from parts of the British media reflected a consistent standard or whether she was held to a different one altogether. And that's exactly why this conversation continues to resonate. Because regardless of where people stand on the royal family, the question isn't simply whether someone likes Meghan or doesn't like Meghan. The bigger question is whether public figures should be subjected to relentless scrutiny that extends beyond their work and into nearly every aspect of their lives. The caller argued that Meghan endured years of criticism that went far beyond ordinary public interest. Everything seemed to become a headline. What she wore, how she smiled, how she held her baby, how she greeted people, how she spoke. Even stories that might have been considered insignificant for other public figures sometimes became front-page news when Meghan was involved. Supporters have long argued that this pattern created an environment where criticism became constant rather than occasional. Whether every headline was fair or unfair is something people continue to debate, but it is difficult to deny that Meghan attracted extraordinary levels of media attention. For years, newspapers, television programs, online commentators, and social media users discussed almost every public appearance she made. That level of attention comes with enormous pressure. Imagine knowing that virtually every gesture could become tomorrow's headline. Imagine understanding that every photograph could be analyzed frame by frame. That reality would be difficult for almost anyone. During the Jeremy Vine discussion, the caller highlighted what many supporters have been saying for years, that similar actions by different members of the royal family sometimes appeared to receive very different coverage. This isn't a new argument. Media comparisons have circulated online for years. Supporters frequently point to examples where one royal received praise for behavior that attracted criticism when Meghan did something similar. Critics often dispute those comparisons, arguing that the circumstances differed. But the existence of those comparisons has become part of the wider debate about consistency in royal reporting. The caller questioned whether the public should ask more difficult questions about those differences instead of simply accepting every headline at face value. That struck a chord with many viewers, because regardless of someone's opinion of Meghan personally, consistency matters, fairness matters, and accountability matters.
One of the most serious moments discussed was Meghan's own public statements regarding her mental health while she was pregnant. In interviews, Meghan is spoken about experiencing profound emotional distress during that period. Those comments sparked global conversations about mental health, particularly among women facing intense public pressure. Mental health advocates noted that pregnancy can already be an emotionally vulnerable time. Adding constant public criticism to that environment raises important questions about how society discusses public figures. The conversation is bigger than royalty. It touches journalism, social media, public expectations, and our collective responsibility when discussing real people. Supporters argue that Meghan's experience encouraged many people to speak more openly about mental health. Whatever opinions people may have about other aspects of her life, conversations about seeking help, emotional well-being, and compassion have become increasingly mainstream. That is a meaningful development. The Jeremy Vine caller also argued that criticism sometimes became personal rather than constructive. There is a difference between analyzing someone's public role and turning nearly every aspect of their personal life into entertainment. That distinction matters. Public figures inevitably face criticism. That is part of life. But there is also an ongoing discussion about where legitimate scrutiny ends and unnecessary hostility begins. That balance is something journalism continues to wrestle with. It's worth remembering that Meghan entered the royal family after already establishing a successful career. Before becoming a duchess, she had built a professional reputation as an actress and was involved in charitable work. Many people admired her advocacy for gender equality and education long before royal life became part of her story. Those achievements are sometimes overshadowed by years of controversy. Yet they remain part of her broader public profile. Since stepping back from royal duties, Meghan has continued working on projects through Archewell and other ventures focused on media, philanthropy, and entrepreneurship. Supporters view these efforts as evidence that she has continued to build an independent career despite ongoing criticism. Not everyone agrees with every project or public statement, of course, but many acknowledge that she has remained active rather than retreating from public life. That resilience is one reason she continues to attract supporters. The Jeremy Vine discussion also reflected something else. Public opinion is far from unanimous. Some callers disagreed. Some defended the media. Others defended Meghan. That diversity of opinion is healthy. Open discussion is preferable to unquestioning acceptance of any single narrative. But one thing stood out. Years after Meghan first joined the royal family, people are still passionately debating her treatment. That alone says something about the impact of the story. Few modern royal figures have generated such sustained international attention. Her experience has become part of larger conversations about media ethics, race, sexism, online harassment, and mental health. Those are issues that extend well beyond one individual. The caller's comments also served as a reminder that audiences today are increasingly willing to question media narratives. People have access to multiple news sources, documentaries, interviews, and first-hand statements. Rather than relying on a single perspective, many compare coverage across outlets and form their own conclusions. That shift has changed the relationship between traditional media and the public. Trust is no longer automatic. It has to be earned. For Meghan's supporters, this is precisely why discussions like the one on Jeremy Vine remain significant. They believe such conversations encourage viewers to think critically about how stories are framed and whether coverage is proportionate. Even those who disagree with Meghan's decisions may still find value in asking whether criticism crossed the line from accountability into hostility. That question remains relevant for anyone in the public eye. Ultimately, Meghan's story is about more than headlines. It's about how modern media functions. It's about the speed with which narratives spread. It's about how public figures navigate extraordinary levels of attention. And it's about the importance of remembering that behind every headline is a real person. Whether someone supports Meghan, criticizes her, or falls somewhere in between, conversations like the one on Jeremy Vine remind us that public debate is rarely black and white. Different people interpret the same events differently. Reasonable people can disagree. But discussions about fairness, mental health, and responsible reporting are worth having. Years after the most intense periods of media coverage, Meghan continues to inspire passionate reactions across the world. Some see resilience, some see controversy, others see a case study in how modern media shapes public perception. Whatever perspective people bring to the discussion, one thing is undeniable. The debate has endured because it touches issues that matter far beyond the royal family. Questions about fairness, consistency, empathy, and accountability will continue to be asked, and programs like Jeremy Vine's demonstrate that those conversations are still very much alive. As audiences become more media literate and more willing to examine competing narratives, perhaps the most valuable outcome is not convincing everyone to agree, but encouraging people to think critically, consume information carefully, and remember that public discourse has real consequences for the individuals at its center. If this discussion resonated with you, let us know your perspective in the comments. Do you think media scrutiny of public figures is applied consistently, or do some individuals receive markedly different treatment? Share your thoughts, and if you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more discussions on the stories shaping today's headlines.